One thing I came to the realization of, because I think a lot about, well, why do I love this podcast so much? I mean, we all tell the same stories and we all tell unique stories.
Yeah.
But I have sometimes asked myself, well, how long can I listen to adoption stories? And it's like, well, forever I can listen to them. And I have some thoughts about, well, why is that? But I'm wondering what you two would say about why do we need to hear these
Yeah.
stories? That's what I think. It's not just that we like to hear them. Why do we need to hear these stories?
Well, you talked about connection. That was your theme this month or right now in your podcast series. And for me, I feel like all of a sudden I have a connection that my whole life I've been searching for, not just because of Sarah and I's podcast, but because of the community and what our podcast has brought us to communities of people that we would never have spoken to or gotten to know all over the country and the world. Really, we've had people from all over the world. And I mean, I honestly feel like I could land in, we talked about a guest the other day in Amsterdam and call up David Anchor and have a coffee more comfortably than calling like an old friend from work, maybe. That's how,
Right.
maybe there's just this connection. And we have a Patreon Zoom, Sarah and I, at first Saturday of most months, if you want to join our Patreon $10 level. Little plug there. I feel like it's just so nice. And I can't explain it to my husband. I can't explain it to outside friends. We have an adoptee group up here where I live. Just getting together with them is different than any other thing I do. And
Mm.
Sarah has her own experiences with it. It's connection, right?
Yeah, and then I think also for me, hearing the stories keeps me it just continues to remind me of just how profound it is to be taken from your mother. And it can
Mm.
be 50 years later, it can be 30 years later, it can be 70 years later. There that the sense of depth to that and the meaning to how intense that is never goes away.
Yes.
It's just it shapes you, and I didn't think about those things until I started hearing these stories, and if I ever get off track and
Yes.
think, "Oh, it's not a big deal," I'm reminded always of what a big deal that is and how it shapes you, and it really I had this moment the other night of just thinking about certain choices or in life and
Hmm.
that when you out the gate you start with some and you're left and then you're told at least in our era of what a wonderful lucky thing it is you were loved so much that you were left that imprinted every relationship that I have had from that point on. I had that moment the other night when I connected that, "Oh my gosh,
Really
that's
home.
why I have chosen unavailable people my whole life." And I would think it was, well, my parents got divorced and no, it really starts with that early wound and the
Yeah.
messaging around that abandonment that, you were lucky to be abandoned. So that anyway.
It is so profound. Yeah. She's right. It is.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I've really thought about a lot, thanks to your show, is this idea that was really sold to both birth parents and adoptive parents that babies are like a
Mhm.
blank slate, like an
Mhm.
etch a sketch. Like, oh, this baby, nothing is going on up here in the brain. And for all they'll, there are no real memories before 3-ish anyway. So for all they'll know, you have always been their parent. And so much, not just in adoption, but so much about the brain and babies and things have advanced in terms of the knowledge going on there that when I think about that, it's so sad
Mm.
and horrifying to me. I know that you both
Mhm.
have kids. Once you have kids, I think that's when the illusion disappears. My oldest daughter no one could hold her for the
Right,
first year of her life except for her father
right.
and myself. And it's like, that's, she's not a blank slate. She knows who her parents are.
You
She doesn't want to
know.
have anything to do. And it, like, even leaving her with the babysitter was impossible
Same.
for a year. And you look at that and you think, that's not a blank slate. That is someone who knows very well that these are the people who keep me safe,
Yes.
who feed me, who protect me, and that's when really you start thinking differently about babies. For me,
Me
that's when
too.
the light bulb went off of like, oh, this baby knows exactly who her parents are,
I
you
had a
know?
I had a realization with a friend recently who was looking at pictures with me. I recently found out my biological mother had me for 6 days back and forth, and I
Mm,
thought it was just
mm.
originally, I thought it was no time. Then when I got to know things, I thought it was 3 days. Now I have a letter that it was 6 days because she wasn't sure, right? She was just trying her hardest to figure this out. And I have some pictures with her that I've seen. And my friend noticed, she said, "Look at you in these pictures. You're very serene looking at her. You're a newborn, but I mean, you're very," and in just like 3 weeks later, I'm in pictures getting baptized. And and also some others with my family where I am looking happy, but like vacant looking like, who are these? I'm literally looking, and I was such a good baby and I didn't cry, of course, because I'm traumatized. We know that now. I was silent and
Right.
self soothed, but she said, "Look, I hadn't noticed that." She said, "Look at these pictures. You're not the same baby." And I'm like, wow, it's weird when someone else sees it because you almost can't see your life sometimes. I don't know what it takes an outsider sometimes who's not even adopted to say, look at that. And Sarah's right. This is a thing that all adoptees have, no matter the circumstance of their relinquishment, right? You're not with your
Right.
mother.
Right.
That's why you're an adoptee.